Alright, hello, welcome to the last of this series. And tonight I want to, on your handout, you see I want to hit is a plant-based diet, the ultimate answer. We talked about a lot of different topics. We've covered meat, we've covered types of protein, we've gone all over the board. And so tonight I want to address this one because there's a lot of pros and cons, even with that. There's a lot of good to the plant-based, a whole lot of good. There's vitamins, minerals that we get more of through the plant-based. But there are some things that are commonly overlooked with the people that promote the plant-based. And if we're gonna look at true health, which is what this series has all been about, true health, then we need to consider the pros and the cons so that we can make sure we fill in the whole picture. So further reporting, this is Tony at St. Charles YMCA, and hopefully we will have all these recordings available very soon. So on these highlights, the very first thing that I wanted to bring attention to, and by the way on the back, at the very bottom of the page you see that it's all sourced from, and I put the link down there so you can actually type it in your browser and find it. And it's the NIH database, which is where a lot of the studies are found. So you can go directly there and actually see this information and a whole lot more, because I picked parts of it that I wanted to cover. The report's pretty long. So the first thing that I've got highlighted here, B12. I've seen plant-based promoters talk about getting B12 from things like seaweed. I've seen people talk about that. But the fact is, among all the vitamins and minerals, plant-based is really good about most, but B12 you cannot naturally get directly from plants. The only way B12 really comes about is when you eat the plants and the body forms the B12. That's what the animal does. So when you take it in from the animal, you're getting the B12 because the animal has actually done that process, and then we take it in from what the animal did. Okay, and this paragraph tells you about that. So when we cut out meat completely, and we do this for a few years, the next highlight shows you the B12 deficiency can lead to a few things: irreversible neurologic disorders, GI problems, anemia. So the neurologic disorders, that's our nervous system. B12 is electrical. It impacts our nervous system. I've seen people, I've trained people that have tremors or have lack of use with their nervous system. Either way you go, B12 impacts that. Most likely they don't have a toxicity, but their body is responding to a lack of it. So, with all the good that plant-based has about it, we have to realize that there are some weaknesses too. So dropping down to the next paragraph, in a vegan diet, vitamin B12 can be found in fortified stuff. So this backs up what the first paragraph says, fortified. So it's not naturally there. Man has to take it into the lab. The food products that we're eating, they took it into the lab, they fortified, they added to it. They took the B12, they added it to that product. So you see on the label it says B12 because they added it in, then we go back and eat it after man has already added it in, because it's not naturally there. Then the next sentence there, even in these fortified products, is not a dependable means of achieving B12. So even when we take something that says it's been fortified, been added back in, man's put it back in there because we know it's deficient, it's not a dependable means of putting that back in the body. And something we have to keep in mind, so as I mentioned the seaweed, there are claims that fermented foods, spirulina, chlorella, I actually do recommend that we take this stuff in every day. I take it in, that they provide B12, but this is why it doesn't work in the plant kingdom, because it's not usually biologically active. And that makes a difference. Just as last session we talked about the types of protein and whether the body can use it or not, well, the same thing holds true for the vitamins, whether the body can use it. We can take in 1,000,000 units of B12, but if the body can't use it, it's not doing us a bit of good. In fact, it'll hurt us because then the body's going to store it as toxins because it can't use it. So, or as the next sentence says, preventing absorption of the functional version. Because this gets really deep and really technical. There is a ball in here. Want to throw me that ball for a second?
You want me to get up?
And walk over there and get the ball. And then throw it.
And then throw it. After I just finished
Don't hit
working
me,
her out
please,
for an
don't
hour.
hit me.
After I just finished working her out for an hour. There we go. Aim, dear, aim. Okay, so our cells, where this says B12 receptors, every cell has receptors. So this is a cell, and let's say this hole right here is a receptor. In reality, every cell that's in our body has receptors all over it. It's covering the cell. Each receptor is actually a protein that's pointing out, and it's got a hook on it. And that hook is it's bent in a specific way to catch specific vitamins like B12. There are certain receptors that's looking for B12 to hook onto it and take it into the cell. Certain receptors looking for fat to hook it onto it and take it into the cell. So the receptors, whenever this not usable B12 attaches to a receptor, then the usable B12 is coming in and it can't get to it. That cell it can't even use it because it's covered with something that the cell can't use. So it's just hanging there, not going anywhere. It can't take it in, can't do anything with it, it's hanging there. So when the B12 comes in that the cell can actually use, there's no opening. So to recap the past sessions, the cell, every cell is like this, and it has hooks coming out of it, receptors, but they're all shaped different, they're all different sizes, and they're all looking for specific nutrients. The thyroid sends stuff in, what we eat sends stuff in, and it's all looking for different nutrients. And each receptor is made a specific way for that specific nutrient. Okay. And the next highlight I wanted to bring attention that B12 toxicity is rare because the more you drink, it just flushes it out. Okay, so the next page, iron. It's one of the most abundant metals on earth, yet it's the most common deficiency in the world. So that we use a cell for that too, because you have an iron receptor. But the thing is with the iron, it's not iron alone that matters. It's the type of iron, which there's heme or non-heme, but there's also, you have to have a vitamin with it too. So the receptor is looking for the combination of that to come in. You gotta have the iron, vitamin D and calcium, so iron and vitamin C. Vitamin C and iron to come in, hit that receptor for the cell to take it in and actually use it. Because plant-sourced iron is non-heme, which is susceptible to compounds that inhibit its absorption. So we have the heme and the non-heme. Most people have heard about that before, not really knowing what the difference is. Plants really only have the non-heme. The animals have the heme. It's protein attached to the iron, which actually makes the cell be able to come in and use it. The receptor comes up, it can suck it into the cell and actually use it. The thought has been, I will say it has been, the thought has been, if we hammer our body with enough non-heme iron, because plants are loaded with iron, they really are, they're loaded with it. So if we hammer our body with enough of that and we take in vitamin C with it, it'll enhance the absorption, which it will a little bit. But if we take in, say, this much heme iron, we need to take in this much non-heme try to get this much into our body. And there's no guarantee that the cells are going to suck enough of it up to make that difference. So, choices to get the iron: dark chocolate, which y'all see me eat every day. Molasses, sesame seeds. There's a few examples here of which you can actually eat to take some of the iron in, keeping in mind that it's not the heme iron. So iron absorption may be diminished in the presence of. I wanted to highlight that too because that doesn't say heme or non-heme. That says iron in general. So even if we take in enough iron, whichever type, but then we're drinking tea, enough tea or dairy, or taking in, and I've mentioned this before, fiber. Fiber is the control nutrient. It binds to pretty much everything, which is both good and bad. It can bind to it, keep the cell from taking it in because it's binding to it, or it can bind to it and control it, and the cell sends out a signal that says, hey, fiber, release that because I need it in. Fiber releases it, goes into the cell. So it can work both ways. The iron absorption is controlled by the things that we eat and drink. Coffee, cocoa, certain spices. Not to say that you shouldn't use those. Take in enough vitamin C with the iron, and it will help. Okay, so this last page, iodine. Dietary sources of trace mineral iodine are unreliable and fluctuate geographically because of varying soil qualities. So, if you're on the plant-based diet, you have to understand this and try to account for that. Now, one reason this is crucial, next sentence, it's crucial for vegans to realize this to avoid thyroid issues. I know from people I work with in the nutrition area and people I work with training, thyroid creates a huge mess. If it's not working right, it creates a huge mess with the body. You lose your energy, you lose your hair, you can't sleep, you start gaining weight, you blah. Unless the thyroid's overactive, and then you think you've hit some miracle because the thyroid is working overtime, which ends up burning the thyroid out. So iodine is one of the keys to help keep the thyroid on track. So we need to make sure that we're taking enough of that in, and the body can use it. The next highlight, anti-nutrients found in these products that can work against the iodine. So we need to be careful with that. And we eat this stuff, right, we eat this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Because we're told that we need to eat this stuff because you know what? It actually is healthy. Flaxseed, peaches, strawberries, sweet potatoes, spinach. This stuff is healthy. We need this stuff. But at the same time, it can mess with our thyroid because suddenly the cells aren't taking the iodine in that they need.
And if I'm on low sodium, and see, I thought the sea salt, but sea salt doesn't
Yeah.
have the iodine.
The
so
sea salt is good. So it just means that you need to take in iodine from sources that are rich in it to make up for where it might be. You see, with all these vegetables, you gotta realize one thing, with all these vegetables, they're loaded with fiber. And we covered on the other page that fiber attaches to things. With all these vegetables are loaded with fiber. Iodine's, the cells here, iodine's over here, the cell's needing the iodine. Fiber comes along, goes, gotcha. Sorry, you can't have the iodine. Because the veggies are needed, the flaxseed, the good fats are needed, but with all that stuff, we are loading the body with fiber, loading it. All that fiber's gotta go somewhere. It's gotta go somewhere. The body's gotta use it. Okay, so zinc supports immune function and wound healing. Well, then, because of things in the veggies, phytates, zinc from plants, the level of it's lower, the bioavailability of it, so you know what the cell can use is lower because of what's in the plant products. Now the thing about this, the zinc deficiency you said you just said the test, the NUC test run, may be difficult to detect in blood tests, but it can show up clinically if your wounds don't heal, or your growth is slowed, or you have hair loss, or your appetite's gone, your taste is different, your skin's reacting different. These things show that the body might be low in zinc whenever the blood tests don't show it. So with all the good that comes with the plant-based diet, there's the downsides to it too. You know, it's a lot of people talk about it being the perfect diet, and it is really, really good. But we have to balance it. It's for each and every one of our cells, and we have millions of these going through our body. Each and every one of our cells are sending out signals that as we eat stuff in here, they're sending out signals to say, hey, I need this that's coming in, I need this that's coming in. And we have to do what we can to make sure that these cells are actually able to get what they're sending out the signal to say, I need. And if they can receive what they're sending out the signal to say, I need, the cell can be healthy. If we can get each of our cells to be healthy, then this body becomes healthy. If the cells aren't getting healthy, this body's going to suffer, because this body is made up of all these little cells. That's what it comes down to. So we need to feed these cells what they need, so that we can have the energy we need to have, so that the emotions can be balanced, so that the strength can be there, so that the mind fog's gone, we can think clearly, we can see clearly, stand up, sit down when we need to. It all comes down to what's going into these cells. And they're telling our body what it needs, what they need. We just have to supply what they need. Once we supply what they need, they're going to sit there and smile and go, yee, thank you. The next one does the same thing all down the line. These cells make up the organs. These cells make up the blood. These cells make up the muscles. These cells make up the bones. When it all has what it needs, then we stand here and the body's doing good. All comes down to the cell. Okay? Any questions about this series?
Iodine supplement. What is that?
What is that?
Since
What is this?
I'm looking, well, I know what a supplement is, but I mean, I don't think I've ever seen that on a shelf.
So, what are
Okay,
some of
there are.
the vegetables, the good vegetables to eat that have iodine in them?
Do what?
What are the foods that have iodine in them, and what's the good food? I'm
What
sorry.
are the foods that have iodine?
that are good to eat? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's it?
Which would be better than a
Because
supplement.
I never use an iodized salt because it also has sugar in it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
It's been tampered with.
No.
So
What happened then?
Man stripped it down, then
So
oh,
I
oh,
screwed up.
we need it.
It's
I
like,
only
Added
use
that.
sea salt and Himalayan pink salt, which
yeah, that's what we used
Yeah.
to.
yeah.
That's what I have at my house because people.
So
If I cook,
I'm
they
wondering
want salt.
if I'm even getting how much iodine I get in mine. So I'm curious, what are some foods that have in it, so I can
Gotcha.
kind of determine am I actually consuming any?
Yeah,
I mean,
and
I don't know.
I was taking a shortcut right direction to the supplement.
Huh?
I was taking the shortcut and going right to the supplement, but hey,
Oh.
food sounds better to me. I'd
Okay.
rather eat it.
As far as a supplement, let me address that. That comes down to reading the ingredient label.
Okay. Because they're not all created equal,
Right.
like
So-
everything else. Surprise.
You want to make sure that the bad stuff like sucralose is not in there, because a lot of companies use that to sweeten it so that you
Yeah.
like the taste of it.
Yeah.
But a deeper issue than that is, this is going to sound really gross.
Oh.
Any vitamin or mineral that we take in off of the store shelf, especially if you get in places like Walmart or GNC or Target, you know, these retail stores, most of those supplements are made from tar. Like the tire, the car oil, most of them are made from tar. They take stuff from that and then they reformulate the chemical part of it and they make it into the nutrient that we need. And you need to look on the label to see that. Somewhere on the label it has to tell you, because that's how I caught it one day. I was
How
looking
is
at.
it disguised? They surely don't say
Tar.
tar.
Yeah, it does. Because that's how I caught it one day. It's been years since I saw it
Okay.
because we stopped using it when I saw that.
Ooh.
It's been years. Well, one day I looked on that label and I was bored and I was just reading labels and I looked at that and I go, what? And showed it to my wife and I said, look at this. And I said, we didn't look at what we actually had at home because at that point we stopped using everything that was on the shelf. Because
I had heard about the Costco and the Walmart and all
Yeah.
that. You gotta, not saying that it's all,
right.
because they're out there for the price and the,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. And especially if it's a cheaper one, and it's probably
Yeah.
made from a source like that because it's cheaper for them to make.
yeah.
So as far as a supplement, you gotta make sure something like that is not on the label. If it's not on the label, it should not be from that because they're supposed to have to tell you somewhere on the label what the source is.
Are you familiar with the Claire Laboratory in St. Louis that they sell you all these supplements?
No,
I think it's Claire,
clear.
because I just recently got some omega-3, the little bitty ones, because the big ones were so
No.
giant. And I've been told they're pretty good. And I have a source where I can get them and not pay the shipping.
Oh,
So that's why I'm kinda, which makes it about a little bit more than whatever you're buying at Costco, which the ingredients are different,
yeah, that's what you gotta look at. So as far as the food list, I will have to compile that and get something together for you.
Yeah, cause I'm thinking
I don't have it
iodine,
off the
would
top of
that
my
be
head.
a fish?
Hmm?
Iodine from fish? Or is that,
I don't think so.
am I not thinking right?
No, when we
I just don't
hear about fish
remember.
is the mercury because they're overloaded with mercury.
Yeah.
I don't think fish would be a good source of that. Fish is really good for the fats. It would be vegetables, but I've gotta figure out which
Oh.
ones.
Okay,
I've gotta figure out which ones.
okay.
So I realize on this
So there's
list,
a lot into what you combine to eat.
nuts. There
Nuts,
should be some nuts good for that
iodine?
too. There should be,
Okay.
and I've gotta figure out which ones. Yeah, so I'll have to work on that list and get that put
Okay.
together. We're connected on Facebook. We're not. I don't even know if you're on there.
I rarely check Facebook, but I'm on a Facebook page with another little therapy group I go to.
Okay.
I mean, I'm old timey, I'm out there, but,
Well, look me up
so
and
what are you on Facebook?
Tony.
Oh, just your name?
Yeah,
Okay.
Tony Dunaway. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just that name. You'll see doctoral student in parentheses by it
Okay.
to know it's me.
Okay,
But look me up there because when I actually have a few minutes to breathe, then I go through messages and I
Oh,
start
gotcha.
responding to people that way.
gotcha. So then I can put my name in there for the iodine list.
Yeah, yeah. Do
Gotcha.
that and then I
Okay.
can communicate with you that way.
Do you have any relatives in Texas? I've been meaning to ask you that with your last name.
Do
Dunaway.
what? Do what?
Relatives in Texas,
Probably.
like the Golden Triangle. Have you ever heard of the Golden Triangle? That 100 miles from Houston on the Texas, Louisiana.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
The
I've
reason
heard
I'm
of
asking
the
is there was an attorney named, James Dunaway, very tall, and from the time he was young, he looked like, oh God, what's the president, Lincoln.
Oh, Lincoln.
He
Yeah,
looks like
okay.
Lincoln, and his law office was right across from the courthouse. We weren't the traditional town square, because we were too
Lincoln
tiny
is-
for that.
Lincoln is somewhere in my family.
And
I
he
figured
would,
that
well,
out.
he would dress up like this, like Lincoln, and walk from his office to the courthouse, and at that time, the banks were down in that area too. And every time I've been here, I said, I'm gonna ask him, so you might be related to,
It's very
he's
possible. I got family
probably
that's spread
close
all
to
around.
his 80s now.
Okay.
So my other question is with iron.
Okay.
So is the dark chocolate and the molasses, is that the list of stuff that is high in
Yeah.
iron?
Yeah, it'll help out with the iron intake.
Alright, because I've been having problems with my,
Which is bad for people that cut carbs.
because remember, hush. So you know that I've been having trouble with my plasma donations because
Yeah.
they're saying it's my how do you say it?
Okay.
Come on, doctor student. Come on, doctor student.
We talked about this, didn't we?
Metacratic or whatever.
Monocratic.
Yes, that level's too high
Okay.
for them to accept me to do, and so they always kind of like shorten it up and say your iron's too high. And they're like, have you been eating too many iron-rich foods, right? Well, I've been eating a lot of cashews.
Okay. So on
Oh.
that,
And I'm like, what am I eating? I mean, I haven't eaten anything different. I don't eat anything different normal, you know, and I'm like, what?
on that, increase the veggies to increase the fiber. Then the fiber will bind the iron, and they won't read so much of it.
Oh, so it's like a balance thing.
Mm-hmm. It's
But
always a
see,
balance.
the choices, like she's saying, the dark chocolate, but then when you look at the next, down at the next paragraph where the diminished, it's got cocoa. And cocoa and chocolate, aren't they the same?
No,
No.
They're not? Cocoa's different than chocolate?
Which page are we at?
Iron.
Second page?
Yeah, the back page,
Yeah,
back.
okay.
Yeah, 'cause see, you know, it's got chocolate listed, then it says coffee and cocoa, you know, the ones, I'm surprised at those prices, 'cause they're, you
well,
know.
dark chocolate and cocoa are different.
But aren't they from the same thing? Maybe not?
Dark chocolate and, well,
I purchased dark cocoa. That special dark cocoa?
if you look at the ingredient label, okay, there's the cacao plant. But if you look at the ingredient label of cocoa and then of dark chocolate, you'll see very different things. How
So
to
cocoa might
explain?
be the byproduct of making the dark chocolate, like a separation thing.
I wouldn't say byproduct of making that, but it kind of brings a good point. When they start with the cacao plant, they're going to be taking, like with anything else, they take pieces
Take it
of it here,
apart.
pieces of it there, right? So,
So
I
the
think
cocoa
I
goes
think
to
the easiest
one.
way to understand it, yeah, would be that way, because
Okay.
with dark chocolate, it's supposed to be pure. Well, no, not all of it is. If you specifically look for the dark chocolate that's higher in content, then it's a more pure thing. Cocoa is not necessarily pure.
Cause I'm assuming they're meaning the cocoa powder.
Yeah.
Okay. Cause I've started buying the dark cocoa powder,
You use that
even though it was really, really dark, and I'm not really a chocolate person.
use that for
But it's
chocolate
really
milk.
good. Well, I've
you
been.
would use it for chocolate milk, but
Yeah.
you're not gonna use dark chocolate for chocolate milk.
Well, no, yeah. Well, and see, even in some of the breads, dark chocolate is used, you don't taste it. The cocoa, I mean, the dark cocoa.
I will say this, if you look for dark chocolate and you want something that's gonna taste good, this is gonna sound, it might sound odd. Every time I find a new dark chocolate, I look on the ingredient list and I see if it says chocolate liqueur, I have trouble with that word, on that ingredient label. If it has that in it, it's gonna taste good. If it doesn't have that in it, it's gonna taste bitter. So when you're looking for chocolate, look for alcohol in it. She's shaking her head. Okay, so I'm wrapping this session up with that. And remember the cell. We gotta make each of these cells healthy, then the rest of the body is healthy. All right? Y'all enjoy? We'll talk to you later.
And it's very